Hi everybody, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. Today I have a step-by-step art journal tutorial that's perfect for the beginner. We're going to make a luscious textured background with a standout focal image. And it all starts with this dotted napkin that I collected as I was visiting family and friends. So this is navy, although it is reading um, black here with the white dots. And I thought this would be great for many, many different kinds of backgrounds. So I've taken off the two excess layers and I'm just ripping it up randomly and just roughly positioning this to get the overall look. Then I'm going to grab my fluid matte medium from Liquitex and I'm applying a coat of it underneath, pressing it down, and then a coat of the fluid medium on top. You can use gel medium, but I recommend making sure that it is a matte finish. You don't want the shine where you don't want the shine. So I'm gluing these down, and this is going to form the first layer on your page. Now, if you don't have a napkin like this, you can use scrapbook paper, you can use a gel print, you can use tissue paper, uh, wrapping paper, anything that has that pattern. So not only am I going with the colors, I'm going to go blue, so the napkin is directing my color choices, but I'm also going to be using the circle that is in the napkin as a motif that I'm going to repeat later on. And when you start repeating things, elements that you have in the different layers, that's what makes a very cohesive looking page. Now that that is completely dry, and I used my heat tool to dry it, I grab this Circle of Jewels stencil because it has circles in it. So look through your stencils, look through your stamps, looking for something with the same motif. And since there's circles in the background, I'm going to repeat that. And this, using modeling paste, this is the light and fluffy modeling paste from the Crafters Workshop, and I will link that in the description box. This is going to give texture. Now here I'm removing some. I went a little bit too far. I wanted to keep just that one motif. A little bit more organized, I guess. I'm not sure what word I'm looking for. But I'm just repeating this motif and I'm moving it around. And I'm going over top of the napkin. And that's going to get rid of some of those hard edges. And it's going to give us some great texture to our project. I'm putting some half circles or half motifs on, as well as some full. They're going off the page. Now, I took time to dry it. So now I'm going to take this yellow-green, light blue permanent, and some white gesso, and I'm going to blend it on my page. Now, this page wasn't gessoed first. A lot of the time I gesso my page first. I didn't do that on this page. Now I'm blending the colors because I know the yellow green and the blue are going to make just a lighter shade of green blue. But I do want to keep the colors separate as well. So I want some that are just light blue permanent, some that are yellow green, and then some that are blended or lighter with the addition of the white gesso. I'm also getting rid of some of the hard edges. I'm not worried about going over top of the napkin. I don't want you to see that it's napkin. When you look at the background, I want you to see it as a cohesive background. Now, I don't really have an idea of where I want the color. I'm just following my instincts. And I know that's really hard if you're a beginner. Where do you put it? I want some of the blue in all parts. I want some of the lime yellow green in all parts. If I get it too mixed up, I'm going to let it dry. I can put a coat of gesso on and then put the color that I want. And I love spreading it with my fingers. I just find that I get a better blend, a more natural looking blend, and that adds a lot of interest to your background. I'm rubbing the blue over top of where the texture is, and we're going to do more to bring out that texture so we see it a little more predominantly than maybe you can right now. But I'm loving the look of it. I love the circles that are from that napkin. I love how we have these dark strips, very organic, flowing through the page. Here I'm just rubbing that blue on top of the texture paste or modeling paste. Don't be afraid to turn your page because maybe that's a better orientation or you're going to see something else. Once that's all dry, I'm coming back with Prussian blue, which is a navy, a dark navy color, very similar to what's in that napkin. And I've picked this Retroburst stencil. And I picked it because, again, it's circular, but it also has some triangular shape. So I'm introducing another shape, but still staying within that circle motif. And I'm sticking to the color pattern. And I just want this swirling through my page. And I'm primarily going where the paint is, not where the napkin is. But if it goes over top of the napkin, I'm good with that too. Again, this gets rid of hard edges, the definitive mark of that you've added this layer. Every time you add something to the top, you're pushing back whatever was behind it. And that gives you that visual layered look. I'm using a makeup sponge here with my acrylic paint. And that's my preferred way to put paint through a stencil. And these are just dollar store makeup sponges. Nothing special. Now here I'm taking the Prussian blue acrylic paint, and I'm rubbing it over top of the modeling paste. And you can see how that just brings out that texture. And that circular motif that was there. There's not a lot of paint on my makeup sponge. It's almost like I'm dry brushing it a bit. But hopefully you can see how it's really brought out that motif. Now, not enough circles yet. I grabbed this circle stamp, dot stamp from Stampendous, I believe. And again, this will be linked in the description box if you want to go see. It's a good solid base that I have used this, and I am going to stamp with white acrylic paint. And just one more layer of circles. And I love we've got different size circles. We've got the Retroburst stencil. Now I've got the Prussian blue is on that makeup sponge, and I'm just edging the page with the Prussian blue. I know I'm going to do some more edging later on, but I want to just kind of frame my page before I decide on the focal image. Now I decided to do this dragonfly, and this was something that I had in my stash. You can use a butterfly, a dragonfly, pretty much any focal image, but I showed with the color wheel that the red-orange that I chose for the dragonfly is complementary to the colors that are in the background. And you can grab a color wheel, what's right across from it is always going to look really good. So when you're trying to decide what color you should go in, that's one way to go. I'm using gel medium here instead of the fluid medium. The reason being this is thicker paper and I have a lot of texture with the modeling paste on the page and it just works a little bit better. And I'm kind of pushing it down. Now this was something that this was a pattern that I purchased on Silhouette and I have made many of them, so I have them in my stash, but you could draw a dragonfly and paint it red orange or use a dragonfly or a butterfly. This background can be for anything. You could also go with black and white focal image. This Trust Your Wings is from a sentiment pack that is in the works. But if you want to see the rest of my sentiment packs that you can purchase, I will put the link to NinnysNapkins in the description box below, and you can go and view all of them and see if there's a sentiment pack that might work for your art journal page. Now we're getting ready to do the finishing stages, and one of the finishing stages is shading your focal image. This is going to make it pop from the background, give it some extra oomph. I'm using what is called the floating acrylic technique, and I will put a link to the video where I teach this technique. I'm using black acrylic paint and an angle brush and just going around the dragonfly. Once it's dry, I'm coming back and I'm adding some more. It's always easier to add more. It's really hard to take away. So build it up slowly. Now I'm using the same technique and I'm going to further edge or shade the page, going around the outside edge. This helps because I'm using black acrylic paint. It's tying into the black that's in the sentiment. Trust your wings. And now I'm shading around the sentiment as well with the black acrylic paint and the floating acrylic technique. Now I want to add a little bit of detail to the dragonfly, so I grab my white Posca paint pen and I'm doing a dot dot and a long dash. Long dash, 3 dots, and I go around. You can do just dashes, you can just do dots, only limited by your imagination. You need to be careful not to put your hand in this as you go around. It does take a little bit of time for it to dry. The Posca paint pen I find fairly opaque and you get good coverage. And if it's not as opaque as you want it, let it dry and then you can go over it again. And you're going to see me doing some of that on here. The stencils that I've used, as well as the Posca pen and other supplies, many of these are available at NinnysNapkins.com, which is an online craft store. and she ships internationally. So check it out. So now that that's done, I'm going to put a little bit of heat on the tape that I've put to keep the coils clean. That just helps remove the tape without lifting up the paper. And there we have it. So let's do a recap with my prompt and process cards. We started with a napkin that simply had dots. That set the color and the motif for this project. I put modeling paste through a stencil that had more circles because circles were going to be the motif. Once that was dry, I applied a base coat of colors, yellow-green, light blue permanent. And that's an analogous color scheme. They're next to each other on the color wheel. And that always makes for a winning color combination. I did some stenciling to add pattern to the background. And then I stamped with acrylic paint to continue adding more layers of pattern. I collaged the focal image that I had cut out from gel prints. This time I used a complementary color scheme to decide on the focal image. It's across from what the colors that we used in the background. I added a sentiment to the page and I shaded around the focal image, around the sentiment, and I edged the page using the floating acrylic technique. Then I outdid some doodling on the focal image, just to add a little bit extra. Thank you for joining me. Some close-ups of the background and this project are following. Give me a thumbs up, follow me on Instagram, leave me a comment, ask me a question. Until next time, go get creative.